What is up, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Shiv, and guess what? World of Warships has done something that we didn't think they would do. They're introducing submarines to the game. Yes, they are. In two tweets, they've shown some of the new Halloween villains and heroes, captains, as well as ships that you're going to be able to play. And guess what? There are some subs here. So let's take a look at some of these ships and let's talk about it. Well, first up, we've got this here. This is obviously a submarine. Look at this. Front mount, center line, conning tower. Yeah, this is 100% a submarine. It's even got dive planes. Like, if there was a question, dive planes, done. So submarines, kind of cool. Then we go here. This doesn't really look too much like a submarine. It looks like a destroyer. Kind of unsure at this time, but it looks kind of cool. Here we've got what appears to be, I want to say, an Ibuki. I may be wrong, but it definitely looks kind of cool. This could also be a Takao, to be perfectly honest, or similar to a Takao. Megami, maybe, but it's a nice ship. Actually, I think this is a Megami. All right, and then, of course, we got a Moss here, but that's not the only ships that they've shown us. We've got even more. Another submarine. Dive plane here. No dive plane in the rear, which is kind of wonky. This definitely looks like a German ship, to be perfectly honest. It's looking to have 6 torpedo launchers here. If I had to make a guess, I'd say this would be like a tier 8 type ship. We've got another one right here. It's only got 2 torpedoes in the front. I believe this might be a Russian type DD, perhaps. Who knows? None of these appear to have any aft torpedo launchers, which, you know, that's probably a good thing. We've got another ship here. This looks like a Z-52, to be perfectly honest with you. You got the 2 front mounts there. You got the torpedo launchers there. The torps are slightly different, to be perfectly honest. So I don't think it is actually a Z-52, but it is a nice ship. And then we've got here what appears to be like a North Carolina or Iowa, which is, again, a very nice ship. So the big takeaway here is submarines, guys. Absolutely, the submarines, and they're showing us at least 3. That means they've got models for subs, all right, and then they've been playing around with it. This is a concept that people have been asking for years, and the developers and the community staff that operates the forums there has been saying no, not yet. I mean, they've been vehemently opposed to the concept of subs in this game, like just downright saying fuck no, all right. But in a nicer manner, because you can't just say fuck no to your community, because that's just, you know. They've always said things like, at this time, no, but maybe in the future we can revisit this idea, which is polite talk for hell no. But still, it is definitely something that I am happy to see. But how is this going to work exactly? How are subs going to work in the game? Well, obviously, a sub is mostly a torpedo boat. Yes, we are seeing guns on them, but let's be perfectly honest. If you're using your guns on a submarine, that is really, really foolish. The biggest thing that submarines have going for them is their stealth. The fact that they can operate with impunity underwater, right? That was their biggest thing. But let's not forget, there are things like hydroacoustic / sonar that could exist in the game. There's been weapon systems that have been mounted on the back of destroyers for years, known as depth charges, that have never had any functionality in the game or any use. They've never actually been an active skill. This could come into effect, maybe only for this Halloween event, all right? Maybe only for that, but it is definitely something that's kind of cool. And I'm really gonna love that. Now, is this only going to be for the Halloween event? For right now, yes. That's all we can make any sort of educated guess on. This is a Halloween only type thing, but it does give us hope for the future. And let's be honest, Wargaming is running out of ships that they can honestly do. I mean, outside of possibly introducing a couple new, like, light cruiser lines and possibly a heavy cruiser line for, say, the British, they're kind of running out of steam. All right, they are running out of steam of things that they can put in there, and what they're doing is they're having to go back to a default mode where they put out name variants of ships. All right, so we've had the Boise and the Nuevo de whatever. That's a name variant. You have the Eugen. That's a name variant, you know, things of that nature. They're coming up with these name variants. Now, obviously, there's still the French DD line. The British DD line is coming out here very, very soon. You've got the Italian Navy they could still work on. They could do some interesting Pan-Asian and Commonwealth stuff as well moving forward. But after that, I mean, that's not very much, right? Now, some of you might say, well, they could give more carriers to different things, right? British had carriers and, Germany had their one, and that's already in the game. We can do stuff like that. Okay, again, that's still very, very limiting. But when you look at submarines, every nation had submarines. Russians had submarines. Germans had submarines. Japan had submarines. The fucking Dutch had submarines. The United States had submarines. Everybody had fucking submarines, okay? This is an untapped resource that they have never really looked into. And there were legitimate logistical reasons why, all right? Some very legitimate logistical reasons why, and that's something that they'll have to address. And we've seen it addressed in other games, like, say, Steel Ocean, and they did a very fantastic job of it. There are some mechanics that they're going to have to work out and balance, which I'm going to tell you right now is very doable, but it's going to be a very tricky thing. And they're also going to have to look at changing a way that hydroacoustic actually works. You're going to have either an active one that spots torpedoes and or ships and all that, and then you're going to have one that's kind of like a passive one that just listens in the water. And when it hears certain things, i.e. submarines under the water, it'll give you kind of like an RDF detection. It's like, hey, there's something under the water over there. All right. And then you can like veer yourself towards it. But that would only be available for select light cruisers as well as destroyers. Okay. And then obviously the closer you get to a target, like say a submarine under the water, the more likely you are to see it. You'll know what's there. You'll get kind of like a ghostly outline saying, hey, it's kind of like over here, that kind of motif. It would still be very, very difficult. So yeah, there's that. But the big thing when it comes to submarines is they can't spend all their time underwater. And that's going to be a really big thing. This is something that the people at Navy Field figured out pretty damn quickly. The longer a submarine could stay underwater, the more damage they could do. Seriously. There were submarines in the tier 8 area that would just wreck the hell out of everything in the game because, hey, look, I have 8 torpedoes in the front. And if I can get point blank to a battleship, I don't care what it is, I'm going to kill it. And I'm going to tell you right now, I took out some of the biggest ships that they had in that game. Mind you, in Navy Field, the Richelieu was the top end of the spectrum for the French. True fact. They didn't have the Alsace or the Republic. But again, that's comparing an apple to an orange. So yeah. But still, this definitely opens up some great possibilities, and I can't wait to see it. So what can we expect if they actually decide to move forward with submarines in World of Warships? Well, one, destroyers are going to take on a new role, okay? They've already got the role of scout and cap, okay? Now they're going to get the role of DD, or not DD, of sub-hunters, okay? Now, this also opens up another possibility that they could bring in the game as well, called the escort. Now, the escort is very similar to a destroyer, but is smaller, okay? We're talking like Fujin size here, or the kamikazes, all right? That's how big these things would be. They'd be very small. They'd generally be rocking about 100 millimeter guns, maybe smaller 76 millimeter guns. Their damage would be almost non-existent to any kind of real surface ship. They would carry torpedoes, they would carry sonar, they would carry depth charges. That is something that they could bring in the game. They'd be super fast, all right? We're talking at minimum speeds here, 37 to like 60 knots, okay, at max. They'd be highly maneuverable, hard as hell to hit. So we're talking like super destroyers, the most annoying things in the game, but their impact on surface fleet would be non-existent. But their impact on subsurface fleet would be pretty insane. Now, if they actually do bring this in, this opens up even more ships that they could bring into the game. Specifically, one of the ones I'm really hoping that they eventually do bring in the game, which is the USS Eldridge. And if you need to understand why, just Google that. You'll understand. Philadelphia Project. Yay, Tesla. So yeah, that is definitely something I would love to see moving forward. And it opens up possibilities. Will that possibly happen? Probably not. So let's stick to what we know. If submarines were to come into game, it would definitely create a very interesting shift. Suddenly, destroyers are going to take on the new role, as we talked about. A new weapon system will be introduced for light cruisers as well, or some light cruisers, as well as destroyers that have it already shown on there, and that'll be depth charges, okay? How depth charges work? Basically, it's an area of effect weapon. The closer you are to your target, the more damage it's going to do. So if you land a depth charge directly on the hull of a submerged ship, it's pretty much going to kill it instantly. I doubt they're going to allow that. You probably need at least 2 to do that, but depth charges are highly inaccurate. Okay, but if it's relatively close, you're going to do burst damage here, burst damage there, boom, boom, boom. Reload time on those is going to be kind of a key thing, and something that balancing is going to need to take advantage of. The other thing is submarines are going to have limited underwater time. Okay, now depending on whether or not they just have surface and subsurface is going to be an interesting thing. If they only have those 2 methodologies, then that's going to be kind of shitty for subs. If they have a third level that they can go to, i.e. bottoming out the boat, which is a great way of, say, avoiding torpedoes as well as breaking off any sort of contact on you, and then you wait for your enemy to get away, then there you go. Another mechanic that they can introduce is speed to noise ratio. So the faster you go, the greater like sound signature you would introduce and the more visibility you'd give to your enemy when you're underwater. So if you're moving at just a quarter speed, it's really hard to see you. They'd have to be right on top of you, which guess what? This is accurate to how it was in World War II. It honestly is. And it could be a really cool thing. The big mechanics they're going to have to work here on is torpedo damage, time underwater, and maneuverability, because that's going to be a really big thing. All right, on the surface, maneuverability is going to be wonky. On underwater, submarines were designed to maneuver a little bit better than they were on the surface, so they would definitely have a little bit more maneuverability options in that regard. And I think that's going to be quite an interesting undertaking for the developer team at Wargaming. And if they can balance that out, that'd be great. Now comes the other interesting aspect, the counterplay option. So as we talked about before, like a passive sonar that's always going, that could be triggered off by speed of subsurface ships. That could be a kind of cool concept they can look at. The blast radius of depth charges, the reload time of depth charges, definitely. Torpedoes, how are they going to interact? Will it only be deep water torpedoes that can actually hit a submarine if they're fired from like a destroyer, or are they going to allow all torpedoes to possibly hit them? What kind of torpedoes will the submarines use? Are they going to be hybrids of, the deep water torps? Are they just going to be deep water torps? How fast are they going to go? How much damage are they going to do? What's the range on them, etc.? Lots of different variables that are going to need some testing here. And in all honesty, in this Halloween event, this is going to give us a really good look at how things could possibly work. So I can't wait to get my hands on this. I can't wait to test it and play it and really enjoy it. Matter of fact, I will be taking part of the public test when this comes out. So yeah, that's going to be a lot of fun, but that's going to be a little bit away. Here we are at mid-September. We're talking about end of October era type stuff. So yeah, not holding my breath just yet. Yes, that's a slight little submarine pun, but get over it. Now, the other big thing that we have to consider when it comes to submarines is they're not going to have a lot of life. We're not talking about like, oh, they should be, in parity with a destroyer. No, they're going to be less parity than a destroyer. They honestly are. Like, you look at tier 10 destroyers, some of them are getting up to 29,000 hit points, okay? We're going to be talking at tier 10 at max 14,000. At max 14,000. And that's like an IS 400, ladies and gentlemen. All right? On average, it's going to be somewhere around 12,000. So yeah, that's going to be the thing there, okay? They're not meant to actually be actively combat, but they definitely are going to have an influence in the way combat is going to be done. Now, they're going to be small. They're going to be hard to hit. Obviously, dispersion is going to be its best friend, which is going to turn ships like destroyers and like cruisers into its primary enemies. They're going to hunt these things. That's kind of how they were meant to. Now, outside of that, one of the other things that really comes to mind that we have to really consider when it comes to submarines is their ability to cap points, okay? If you have the ability of staying underwater for, say, like 5 minutes, which, please, Wargaming, don't do that, then all of a sudden, you become the indispensable capping machine. That's going to be slightly problematic. Now, another aspect we have to talk about is the speed of the submarines. Submarines generally on the surface were not that fast, 27 to 32 knots, and then underwater 17 knots, 18 knots, 19 knots max, okay? So that's a massive speed reduction. So this basically tells us, that their detectability on the surface is going to have to be really, really low. We're talking 3-4 kilometers here, okay? 3 to 4 kilometers. And then the torpedo range is going to have to be somewhat within that, you know? And that's the only way you could really make this work. It really is. So personally, I can't wait to get my hands on this. I think this will be really fun. But only time will tell whether or not this is going to be something that Wargaming is going to put into play. It makes a lot of sense that they'd want to put this into play. It gives them a ton of new options that they can play around with, and there's going to be a slew of balancing issues that are going to definitely pop up from this. One of the other things I think is going to be interesting is how are submarines going to handle fire? Is it just going to be like, oh, I'm on fire, dive? Or are they going to be only able to put out fires by, you know, using the damage control? And if they're on fire while underwater, is that going to be something that is just going to burn up their air as well as do damage? I mean, there's a ton of different things that can definitely play havoc here, and it's kind of cool. And I'd love to be a fly on the wall and know Russian when the developers are discussing how they're going to make this work, because I think it would be really interesting. All right, I have a ton of thoughts and a ton of ideas. I'm probably going to do a video about this later on about how you could actually make subs work in World of Warships. But right now, I think this is an amazing first step, and I'm really happy to see it, and I hope you guys are too. So let me know down in the comment section below, what do you think about subs coming to World of Warships? Are you happy for it? Do you like it? Do you think this is a great idea? Or do you think that this is just kind of a big mistake? What sort of mechanics do you expect a sub to have? What sort of counterplay options do you think subs should have? Let's have this discussion. Let's talk about this now. Anyway, guys, this is pretty much the end of the video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Till next time, stay safe, have fun. May RNGs bless you. I'm out.